Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for being here, and we are with candidate number 3 for the day. This is Matt Gurtler, and we sure appreciate you being with us today and taking the time to come and visit with us. Looking for you out there in TV land. We appreciate you tuning in as well. The first thing we'd like to do is just to get to know Matt Gurtler a little bit. So tell us about yourself, your family, whatever you think is important.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate you guys having me. I'm Matt Gurtler, and I'm from Raven County. I grew up there. I'm one of 5 children. I'm the second oldest. I've got an older brother and a younger sister, another younger brother, and another younger sister. And so my parents are Paul and Kim Gurtler. We run a construction business, a family business. I've done that my whole life, and I've grown up working, jacking up houses, doing structural repair, a lot of that in the mountains, specializing in house moving, and we do custom homes as well and remodeling. And so that's where I grew up at. I'm a Christian. We're raised in a Christian home. We're also homeschooled. All my siblings were homeschooled. And so I graduated a year early through college. I'm in high school, and I went to college, University of North Georgia. I graduated from there, ended up getting my degree in history. I participated in ROTC for a few years there. After I graduated, I went back to work for the family business. I still work there full time. Well, not now with the campaigns going on. I'm dedicating all my time to this campaign, but I've always been in construction and running the business with my father. I'm married. I got married about 2 years ago to Marissa, my wife. We met down at the Capitol when I was an aide to my predecessor, who was Stephen Allison, and we have almost a one-year-old daughter, Olivia. And so her birthday's coming up on July 25th, so very soon. So time's been flying. But after I graduated, I went back to work for my dad, and I actually got a job with Stephen Allison. He was my state representative up in the district that I now represent in my early 20s. And he represented Raven, Towns, Union, a little bit of White County. And so I worked with him, and I got to see the inside baseball at the Capitol. And so from there, I really got to see how the state operates, and it really was a mirror of DC, just on a smaller scale. I got to see a lot of things happen that I wasn't very comfortable with. A lot of bills passed unanimously, even though we as Republicans controlled everything. And I'm a Republican, I'm a true Republican. I really believe in the founding principles of the country. I really believe in limited government, the Constitution, free markets, getting the government off our backs to be as small as possible. So small you wouldn't even know it exists. That's my ultimate goal. But I saw a lot of compromise happen at the Capitol as an aide. It upset me as a young man. And so I thought I might run for office one day, but I didn't think it would be at 26. So the seat came open. I ran for that seat. I got elected in 2016 when Donald Trump was running. I went to a runoff. This is my second runoff election now. And then I won that one, and then I got reelected in 2018, and now I'm running for Congress to be your next congressman, Doug Collins, and of course he's going to the U.S. Senate. And from there, I'd love to talk about the campaign. I know you got more questions, but right now we're at 28 days to go to the runoff. If we won this one in August, we'll be set, because the November election is really no challenge, but the challenge there is to get the Republicans back out to vote for Donald Trump. And so we're going to be pushing for that. So whoever wins this August 11th runoff is going to be the next congressman for the district. It's the 3rd most conservative district in the United States of America. I don't know if you guys knew that, but very, very conservative people, good Christian people that really want limited government. So that's what I'm running on, a proven record. For 4 years, I've been named Georgia's most conservative legislator in the state, because I have a high standard when it comes to voting. I always ask a series of questions. Is it constitutional? Is the bill constitutional? Does it increase the size, the scope, or the intrusiveness of government? And if it didn't meet that criteria, I couldn't vote for it. So I vote no a lot, more than any other representative in Georgia, actually. And Tom was here earlier. He must have left, but he knows this about me. Tom McCall, our representative here. I'm on the Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee. I've learned a lot over the years there, but having that principles, and the experience of that was what sets me apart in the campaign. And I look forward to answering your questions. Sorry if that was long-winded. That's just trying to get up to speed where I am at right now.
Sure, no, we appreciate that. Appreciate you being here, and we'll jump right into the first topic. It has to do with the Farm Bill. And if you were to be elected and serve in Washington there, that's something that would come up during your time, I'm sure. And we want to know what areas of the Farm Bill need to be improved. What areas do you see as something that needs to be tweaked a bit? What are the priorities in the next Farm Bill?
Well, I haven't looked at the current Farm Bill. I know that I've seen some things over the years. I'm here to learn from you guys as well. One of the bills I've been researching a lot, which was introduced by one of my friends and who endorsed me, is Congressman Thomas Massey, the Prime Act. Have you guys heard of this? There's 4 big producers that I'm learning through this process. That there's 4 main producers that account for about 90% of the processed meats. And what the Prime Act does, which I support, would basically allow farmers to sell directly to restaurants, to the customer, to the grocery stores, so the government get off your back. The USDA will not allow you to do this, even though there's state laws. The federal laws say you can't do this unless there's an office and also a bathroom for the officer, the USDA, before you can do this. So it's kind of onerous. I don't think the federal government should be able to do that. In regards to your question of the Farm Bill, I'd have to look at it more, Will. I haven't really delved into that bill, but I'd be happy to do that and get back with you about specifics. I'm really here to learn from you guys. If there's specifics, things that you would like to see done, because I'm not a farmer, I'm a home builder, but I have to learn about my concerns for each district and each county we have here, so that I can be a better representative, because that's what I've done as a state representative for 4 years. We've learned a plethora of things over the last 4 years, but some things I would never imagine learning about, but you get these concerns from constituents. So if there's things that I need to know about, Will, that you guys can advocate to me right now, I'm open to that.
Well, on that subject of the Farm Bill and whatnot, the Farm Bureau is the voice of the Georgia farmer, and we're a membership-driven organization, and so what we support, we do so as a group and from the grassroots level. And if you knew hypothetically that Farm Bureau was in full support of the Farm Bill, then would you be on board to support that as well?
Yeah, I would trust you guys. Of course, I would have to look at the bill. That's what I've strived myself by, having a high standard when it comes to any bill. But certainly, if there's support from that, there's a lot of things that happen in the state capitol I've seen where, you have support from different groups, and, usually 90% of the time they're good bills. You just have to really look at the legislation, and I've always had a keen interest to be making sure I make the right decisions. But certainly, yes, I would certainly look at that and consider that the highest, most priority if the Farm Bureau supported that bill.
Good deal. We'll move along to trade is the next topic here, and certainly in the last 18 months it's something that's been really a big topic in the country, and some things have been done to really help farmers in terms of marketing products worldwide. But also there was some tariffs at one point that were a great hindrance to us. What would you do? How would you control the playing field there, make sure it stays equitable, make sure that we hold our partners accountable for their end of the bargain?
Well, it kind of goes back to the Prime Act a little bit. We saw this happen in the COVID-19 crisis was still going on. Regulations were lifted for our truckers to be able to export, cargo across the United States to get meats, because we sort of had a crisis with the meats getting to the grocery stores in this regard. And a lot of the guys I talked to, they said, well, why don't we just leave it like this, because it's actually easier for us to do our jobs. We have more time on the road. We can do things better. And now all that was reducing the size of government. And so, in that lens, when I look through a limited government conservative lens and trying to be the most conservative I can be, the less government, the less regulations is always better. Government's way too big, less taxes. Anywhere that you guys will be able to, farm and to do the things that you need to do with having the government on your back is ultimately, I think, better for the markets. The free market can flourish that way because it's self-regulating. And so we saw a lot of these things happen with COVID-19 where government was forced to get out of the way, and it was actually better. And so those are the type of things I try to look at when I look at this crisis we have, COVID-19, which hopefully will be going down soon.
We sure want to move on from that one, get that in the rearview mirror and put it away for good. Another part of trade that's been a big topic is the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement. And this one has been, by and large, good for farmers in Georgia. One area of concern has been that there was not much done for anti-dumping where fruits and vegetables are concerned. How would you go about trying to improve that or counteract that problem?
Well, you know, government's first fundamental role is to protect life, liberty, and property. And so when you look at things like you're talking about dumping, to be able to do that on your land, I think people should be able to use the land if they see fit, as long as you're not hurting other people in any other way. Sort of the non-aggression principle, they call it. So going back to that, and going back to free trade and trade agreements, I think we should trade with, all nations, not our enemies, of course. But having to trade and having those non-entangling alliances per se would be able to have a flourishing market for, like I said, farmers to farm, builders to build, different avenues of the market to flourish. And that all comes down to small government principles, which I've been advocating for as a state rep for 4 years. And if I'm in Congress, certainly the federal government has put its hand in so many things in our lives, including the states, and they sort of hold that over the state governments, and they tell us what to do all the time. I see this happen with our budgets in the state government, where they want you to do certain things, and they kind of hold the money back, and so the long arm of Washington is really controlling a lot of things in the state level. So reducing the federal government would be ultimately a goal of mine, and to do that, you're going to have to be outspoken about these issues for our farmers, to get back to a limited government so you guys can do the work you need to do without having to go through all these regulations. Because I've seen, just talking to farmers just in the last, 4 months, I've talked to them, and they want to be able to sell their meats. They want to be able to, toil the land, harvest, these things like that, without having the government tell them what to do. And I think most people would agree with that.
All right, we'll switch gears now and go a little bit towards immigration as it pertains to ag labor, and certainly that's something that's very important here in Georgia and in the 9th District as well. We rely on some of those sources of labor. The H-2A program, however, it's a broken system. We know this, it needs some changes, and wonder what your thoughts are about trying to go about improving that.
Well, the America takes more immigrations in any other country in all the world. So we certainly want our workers here to work and to flourish and have the American dream. They have to go through the right process, though, of course. And so as a congressman, I do support building the wall. I support Trump in that aspect. But there's a lot of things that have to go along with that. It's dismantling the welfare state, dismantling the sanctuary cities. But there's a process, and the immigrants should respect that process. And so we certainly want all the labor we can get. I think it's what America was founded upon, but there has to be a good process to it, so that it doesn't disrespect the other people that wait in line. I think that's disrespectful, and of course there has to be rule of law ultimately. So those are the things I see about immigration, but we certainly want the workers here in the right and proper channels based on those things.
Moving along now to animal welfare as a topic. And in the 9th Congressional District, food animal agriculture is a big deal, a big part of the economy. It's kind of what makes the world go round around here. And there's a lot of anti-animal agriculture groups out there that are pushing for certain laws to be passed. I want to know your position on some of those laws and whether they should be enacted. Do you position animal rights equitable with human rights? And do you see these kind of laws as threats to agriculture in the 9th District?
As a Christian, we're not animals. We're created in the image of God. And so no animal is going to take precedent over a human being. I don't think, you gotta be careful, I guess, with what you say, but, human rights, human rights are completely separate than you would say an animal right. I don't like to say that, but you certainly should be able to use your property as you see fit, and as long as you're not hurting anybody else. It always goes back to the non-aggression principle for me. I think people should be able to do what they want to do for the most part, as long as you're not hurting anybody else. And that just sort of comes down to, responsibility for the individual to be able to have freedom, because you can't have freedom without responsibility. That comes with our Second Amendment rights, our First Amendment rights, anything like that. So, when it comes to those types of groups, what you're talking about, I would oppose those groups, because I think you should be able to do what you want to do as long as you're not hurting anybody else. And, we're created in the image of God because He's our creator.
He is that for sure. we have some questions from the audience now, and we're going to have Trip come and ask you those questions.
All right, first question, would you support the expansion of the Clean Water Act to all waters of the U.S.?
Can you expound upon what the Clean Water Act specifically is?
Your water for the U.S., the Lotus Rule, it's basically federal jurisdiction of our nation's waterways, federal versus state.
Well, I guess in that regard, I would want to look at the 10th Amendment. You know, of course, having protection under the federal purview, protect the states. But I'm trying to understand specifically what you mean with like pollution and things like that for the states versus the international waterways.
Sure. It would be all domestic waterways, but it's been a big deal. Clean Water Act is 1974 law. We fought about it for decades here. The Obama administration basically came in, rewrote the definition of water in the U.S. to bring more or less every kind of waterway, ditches, rainwater flows. It's not just your traditional navigable waters, but everything under federal purview.
Oh,
The
okay.
Trump administration's rolled some of that back now.
Right. I understand what you're saying now. It's a state issue. The federal government has no issue in that. You know, if we look at like as a home builder, sometimes we can't even use our own property the way we want to do it. I have a stream through. My parents have a stream through their property, yet we can't build unless there's 50 feet off that, and then we get a $10,000 fee, and the EPD is getting out of control. So it comes down to like the EPA on the federal level. I don't think that should exist whatsoever. I don't think the IRS should exist. I don't think the Department of Education should exist. Those things, the federal government shouldn't even have the purview for those types of things. So I would say that this would be a state issue at the very least.
Well, now that you've told me the IRS shouldn't exist, would you support eliminating the federal estate tax?
You said the federal estate?
Yeah, federal estate.
Absolutely. I've never even voted for a tax increase in 4 years. I'm the only representative in Georgia that can say that because I said I would never vote for a tax increase because government's way too big as it is. And the way government grows is these tiny little infringements over time. Big government didn't grow big overnight. It took many years of many compromising things to happen. And the only way to get back to a limited government is to have to take those hard stands. And I've taken those hard stands as a representative. And I said I'd never vote for a tax increase, and I would try to eliminate as many taxes as I could. Now, I even introduced a bill my freshman year to eliminate about $150 million in taxes for our hotels and motels in Georgia, and have been fighting against tax increases ever since then by voting against every single one that's came up. And so, as a limited government conservative Republican, that's the only way we're going to get back to limited government, is to lead by example and have less taxes for everybody all around. And I'm willing to take those hard stands, and that's what I'm running on for Congress. It's a proven record. I get the most conservative voting record in the state.
All right, they'd like your thoughts on gun control as well.
The Second Amendment says shall not be infringed. That's a no compromise statement to me. The right to self-defense is a God-given and natural right. My first bill that I introduced was constitutional carry. And so that means that you get to open carry or concealed carry a firearm without paying the government a tax or a fine or a fee. 17 states have passed this. I introduced it in 2017. I pushed for it really hard, and I reintroduced it again. And then I got Governor Kemp to go on record to support that legislation by being loud and bold about it, even though the squishy Republicans in the House didn't want to even touch it, even though we're supposed to believe in our Second Amendment and the rights, right? So being loud and bold was been able to me to accomplish that. But I'll never give an inch on the Second Amendment. I actually want to introduce a bill called the National Firearms Act Repeal Act, which would give back that to the states. So we eliminate that completely, or the Hearing Protection Act, which Donald Trump Jr. supports as well. So we would take out that, if we can't repeal that completely, give that back to the states, where you'd be able to buy silencers and things like that on the state level. We should never be able to tax any of our rights whatsoever, fundamentally. And so I'm an avid shooter. I build AR-15s. I'm an NRA pistol instructor. And the Second Amendment, to me, holds the entire Constitution together. If we allow Marxists and communists and socialists and the Democrats to take over and take away our Second Amendment rights, we're not going to have a country left whatsoever. It starts there. So I will be loud and bold on the federal level, just as I've been loud and bold on the state level with constitutional carry. I also co-authored the anti-red flag bill. If you guys have heard of these red flag laws, they're very unconstitutional. They go against your First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, and Fifth Amendment rights. And they set dangerous precedents because you see this happen in California when they passed this law. Governor Newsom came back in almost every year. The legislature comes back in and they see upping the ante about who can turn you in for making some sort of Facebook comment maybe that you made, and maybe your leftist neighbor didn't like that. And they would come to your house and do a no-knock warrant and confiscate your gun when you committed no crime. So those types of things that I'm very aware of and I'm very passionate about, and I'll never give an inch on the Second Amendment whatsoever. You can count on me on that regard.
All right, last two related to the coronavirus. Two-part question. What would be your vision or plan for getting America back to work now? And would you support some type of federal legislation to prevent mandatory economic shutdowns like we've had?
Well, I'll try to answer all three of them. So certainly there's a health crisis, there's an economic crisis, and then there's a constitutional crisis, what's going on. And the Constitution doesn't get shredded up because there's a virus. So we had a special session that came in March, and we were told to come back in. It's actually my second special session. Very rare to have a special session, even 2 in 4 years. And so we came back in, and we were going to give the executive, complete power over this, to shut down the economy, do different things like that. And we came in at 8 o'clock in the morning. We had 2 pieces of legislation on our desk, and one said that the executive would have unlimited power. So every 30 days, the executive could just renew the emergency powers. And then there was another piece of legislation that said we would renew it every 30 days, and the legislative body would come back in and check that. So it's pretty obvious that under our civics, Civics 101 would tell you, yes, we need to check the executive. That's checks and balances. So everybody in that morning, the Democrats, the Republicans, everybody I talked to said we're not voting for that unlimited power. We're not going to do that. And so we passed out a reasonable, responsible response to that was the 30-day check. It went over to the Senate. About 4 hours later, it came back, and it was completely gutted, and it said, no, we're going to do unlimited power to this. And so everybody, at the end of the day, changed their mind, and I was the only representative in Georgia to vote no to that bill. And believe me, it was a lot of pressure to do that. But those are the stands I'm willing to take, and I have taken, because it's a constitutional thing to do under the checks and balances of our founding fathers, to have a reasonable check on the executive, no matter who it is. If it's a Democrat or Republican, we should have a reasonable check on that. Now these powers have been extended, I think 4 times now, without any input from the legislative body, which is the people's house, which should rest with the people. In regards to getting the economy back going, I think we should get back to work. I think a lot of these things, of course, it's terrible. We have deaths in our country from the disease, no doubt. I think it comes down to personal responsibility. It shouldn't be forced and mandated upon anybody to wear a mask. If you don't want to wear one, you don't have to. Of course, have responsibility to other people and maintain social distancing if that's what you want to do. But I think certainly we got to get the economy back going. I think it sets a dangerous precedent that we've done this in the first place, because what happens next? Did we do this every single time? We can't do this every single time. We are literally going to destroy our country. This continues to happen like this. And so, those types of things we've got to be outspoken on, and I've been outspoken a lot on this, especially when it comes to our Second Amendment rights. If you guys had noticed, when the emergency powers have been placed, the judges stopped issuing concealed permits. And this is when you need a firearm the most, when all the rioting and looting is happening. So I called on them to stop enforcing the Georgia weapons license and to essentially have constitutional carry already, but they didn't want to do that. So that's just another thing that I've been trying to advocate for, and I think I answered all your questions. Was there another one? Okay, thanks so much.
Outstanding. Matt, we appreciate you being here and coming and visiting with us. Folks, Matt Gurtler, please give him a round of applause, and appreciate his coming out and spending some time with us this afternoon.